Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mythology is part and parcel of being Indian. We have all been regaled with tales of heroic warrior princes and awe-inspiring battles on celestial scales, replete with infernal asuras and giant snakes, since we were children. Mythology is more than just a good story, however. It has value as literature, discussing timeless themes, giving us insight into ages and places long gone, and helping us see how much mankind had and has in common. But these epics are ancient, from eras long gone. In a world where we think more of Iron Man or Captain America as opposed to Narasimha or Kalki, do the myths that we grew up with still have a place? The Indian public certainly thinks they do, with the works of authors like Amish Tripathi, Ashok Banker, and of course our esteemed panelists. Mythology is sweeping Indian publishing. So, panelists, why is mythology still relevant today? How does it still draw readers, even though everyone grew up hearing these very tales?
I think it's very relevant today, mostly, like you said, because of the works done by Amish, Ashok, but even before that, it's because, as young India has realized, they look around and they see that things in India aren't exactly perfect, to say the least, There are lots of issues we're dealing with, and I think they need to believe that, they need to believe in the glories of the past and our need to recapture it. So I think mythology gives them hope that maybe someday we will be like the Pandavas and where good triumphs over evil, something like that. Just a link to the past so that you can believe in the future.
I have another take on this, and that is human beings by nature believe in storytelling, and for whatever purpose, purpose of identification about who I am and what am I doing in the circumstances, or when it comes to morals, or when it comes to looking up to something. It's always been based on storytelling, and mythology has always been the first set of stories that we've been brought up with. I mean, the way I look at it, mythology is the primeval man's, the first man's, the initial man's stories, which kind of explained everything to people, be it natural aspects, be it rules, be it norms, be it societal aspects, anything. Just about anything has been introduced through mythology, and that's probably the main reason why mythology is still so relevant. And I must say it's so relevant today, we even have students coming to study mythology. Mythology is no more in the realm of entertainment or storytelling. We literally have people study them, and these are professionals. These are professionals who are all willing to know more about it. So mythology is that much more relevant. Yes, it's become more popular, but relevant, I think it still is, and quite obviously, the way I look at it, it's very, very relevant.
I agree with Utkarsh's point. One of the reasons why also I believe that mythology, especially Indian mythology, has been alive or has been reinvented so recently, is that we keep retelling our stories over and over and over again. I think we were just discussing in the speaker's talks that there exist 300 different versions of the Ramayana across India. If you travel from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, every story about Ram and Sita that you hear will be a little different from the one that you heard previously. So I think one of the reasons that we still keep the connection intact with our stories is that we keep retelling them over and over again, and we keep adding our own perspectives, we keep adding solutions, or maybe we keep adding our own problems or our own issues with mythology. It reflects the society from which it comes from. So, for example, if a certain retelling or a certain reinterpretation of Rama is to be written today, it would certainly reflect some aspects from this society. If a version of Ramayana was to be written in the 16th century or in the 14th century, you can go back and read it, it would reflect issues, or it would reflect problems, or it would at least basically reflect the social condition of that society. So one of the reasons why our mythology is so vast is that it encompasses all of the basic human emotions or the basic human conditions that there exist in the world. I think that's the reason why mythology has kept up.
Thank you. So, recently we've all seen such a resurgence of mythology and mythological fiction in the Indian literary scene, which was not quite as apparent, 30, 40 years ago. So, why do you think so many authors in India adopt this genre? Anuja, Utkarsh, what made you choose this genre as as the genre you wanted to work with?
I had a very different reason. My reason was that I found many authors, I mean, I dare say that, but I found many authors misusing mythology. I had a problem with that. My problem was that when people misuse mythology for a particular purpose, like an ideology or a personal thing, I had a problem with that. And that's when I thought that if I'm able to teach a whole section of people what is right and what is the way to interpret mythology, maybe it was time to write the right kind of mythology. And that's why I took up mythology, to say a story in its cultural milieu. Please understand, mythology, the stories that we are telling or the retelling today were not meant for you and me. When Valmiki wrote his Ramayana or Vyasa wrote his Mahabharata, he didn't know that in this auditorium, guy speaking in English will be discussing my works. No, he didn't think about it, or they didn't think about it. But the fact that we're still discussing shows the relevance of the topic. And misusing it for any purpose, be it ideology, as I said, be it any purpose, was wrong. And that's why I thought, whatever little I can do, it's to be done. And that's why I identified writing on mythology. I think it's necessary to write the right kind of mythology. That's why I'm here trying to write on this. And I feel it's a huge cachet of work. It's a huge amount of work which needs to be given the right direction. How much of it I'm doing, I have no idea. But true to myself, I know that at least I'm telling the right kind of stories that need to be told in the right manner. And that's the reason why I chose mythology. And when I teach mythology, I come across a lot of misconceptions that people have about mythology. So I was hoping that with this little work and these lectures or speaking engagements or whatever I do, I'm making a small difference in my own way.
I couldn't agree more with Utkarsh here, but for me actually the reason was a lot simpler than even that. For me, it just boils down to the fact that this is a genre which I love. As Utkarsh pointed out, these are the stories you hear as children. They are part of your earliest memories. And as Nivid pointed out, there are so many retellings, which is how mythology has survived, throughout the course of our history. And I just wanted to be a part of that, the storytelling process. I would, like Utkarsh mentioned, I wanted to contribute my 2 cents and be a part of it. And again, I agree, mythology is something that's being misused, it's being misunderstood, misinterpreted. There are so many misconceptions around it. And for instance, when you talk about, when you read in the papers about how a man gets lynched because he was accused of eating beef, and people assume that we've all lived on love and fresh air and fresh vegetables and fruits all our lives. And in our mythological stories, you have stories about, how there's a little story about Sivatandar, which we say in the south. He was one of the 9 Mars, and there's a story where his devotion was tested when the Lord showed up at his house and asked for non-vegetarian food. And he was too poor to be able to afford to buy meat. So they say he chopped up his son and served him up. Okay, that was the test of devotion, and it's not something I'm making up. It's from our, rich mythological treasure trove of stories. And the whole thing is, you've got to look past what a person eats, before you decide to judge him and kill him. And that's the kind of thing which I wanted to write about, stuff which makes sense to me, because I have 2 little girls, and you want them to grow up, being sensible, not, misinterpreting stuff and killing people over it. So that's the thing. And even Padmavati, the recent scandal, you're talking about a woman who set herself on fire, and it was tied to a man's notion of honor. These are patriarchal ideas, and again, I wouldn't want to, change that and twist it all around, but I would like to reinterpret it and present it as something that was really tragic, more than something that was glorious. Stuff like that.
Right. So, Anuja, because you both used and explored characters which are not as well considered in traditional widespread notions of mythology. You've explored Shakuntala, Kartikeya, and Yam, and you've taken some more familiar stories and explored it from their perspective. So, how did you research to get the knowledge required to weave your stories? What was your approach when you chose these characters and followed them through?
As far as I'm concerned, I'm somewhere a bit of a feminist at heart. So I had a problem when I felt that in this entire mythology, while I do teach and I do tell people about the fact that, oh well, mythology was told by the men for the men. But when men were telling these stories for the men, you couldn't have glossed over the contribution of women. And unfortunately, we do not have any female heroes in our mythology. I guess we see sparks of them showing up once in a while in a Draupadi or in an Amba or whatever. But individually also we had very, very strong characters, and in all this huge thing about muscle flexing, about sacrificing for the father, going and waging wars against Danavas, etc., etc., we missed out somewhere the contribution and the heroic contribution of women. And that's where I first came across the story of Shakuntala, because as a child I read about Shakuntala as a lovelorn damsel in distress, shedding copious tears, doing nothing but only crying. That's not the Shakuntala that Vyasa had envisaged. That was Kalidasa's Shakuntala, which was a character of a dance drama called Abhigyan Shakuntala. But so what made him change is where my research started, and I realized that true to the Vyasan mold of a heroine, Shakuntala was not a damsel in distress. She was a strong, fiery woman who took her own decisions and who actually, how do I put it, gave up blasting to this man called Dushan in his own court. And I couldn't just give over that, and I couldn't let that stuff be kept away from people. And that's when I wrote my first novel of Shakuntala as seen by Vyas. While at it, I also took up very, very two strong misunderstood women. One of them was Ahalya, who was supposed to become a stone, and I've kind of interpreted that Ahalya story from the perspective of Ahalya. And another third character which I've taken up is Madhvi. Not many know about Madhvi, but Madhvi was Yayati's daughter, who was let loose in a classic example of sexual exploitation or sexual hospitality as we understand in mythology. And I thought that those stories needed to be told, and that's how my first came up. The second again is Satyavati, again somebody who's kind of, anybody who's seen B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata scene, from the very beginning to the end, she's on the side of the screen wearing a white sari. Whereas I felt that Satyavati had a huge role to play, because it was thanks to Satyavati, or for whatever reasons, rightfully or wrongfully, nobody in the Kuru clan was a hardcore pure Kuru. And what made her do that? There was no Pandav in the truest sense of Pandav, there was no Kaurav in the truest sense of Kaurav, there wasn't anybody in the truest sense of the lineage, and that was her doing. Was it right or not? I'm not going to get into that. Having said that, can you gloss over the contribution of a woman who had so much power without having to flex muscles or take out a dagger and a sword? So these stories I thought were waiting to be told, and unfortunately nobody was telling me. We were so preoccupied with the men around us in the mythologies that I thought probably, and my third coincidentally is also a woman character, that's Kannaki, again a lesser known actor person in Tamil mythology. Ask anybody about mythologies in the world, in our country, or ask anybody in the epics of our country, people will say yes, Ramayana and Mahabharata. But we've forgotten a very, very important epic down south, and that's called Silapatikaram, which is an epic which was written in Tamil about a woman. Any of these mythologies are men's stories, okay? If you look at Ram, you look at Krishna, you look at Pandavas, all men. This is probably the only epic I've come across in my entire career of studies of mythology for the last decade. I realized this was the only character who carried the entire epic on her individual shoulders, where the men do not have that significant a role to play as Kannaki had. So I think this was my focus area, and I continue to write about women in mythology. As and when they come, we talk about them, but these were stories waiting to be told, so I just couldn't help it but have to tell them.
I agree with what Utkarsh said, because most of mythology, even the reinventions of mythology, for one of the examples that comes to mind is the Palace of Illusions by this Devakruni. That is a retelling of Mahabharata from Draupadi's perspective. It's not Draupadi's story.
Yeah, it is correct.
It's not Draupadi's story. So most of what is written in mythology is, even if we establish a woman, a feminine element, it is going to be a perspective-driven element. It is not going to be a story-driven element. So I think that needs to be done a lot in mythology, even if we need to reinvent them in the modern times for real of that. So So yeah, that is quite a commendable aspect that you're bringing up in mythology by introducing female stories instead of female perspectives.
I agree with the points raised by Utkarsh and Nivid, but I'm also a feminist, but I would like to take it a step further. I feel that while it's perfectly fine to celebrate women's writing and women characters and all that, I also feel that by affirming differences between men and women, you also perpetuate it at some level. So when I write, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't come down to gender at all for me. For me, I feel that a woman's voice will never be silenced. It just cannot be silenced. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so powerful characters, powerful women have always been there, and we've always found a way to make our voices heard. So for me personally, I didn't. So when I wrote Shakti, it's not because for me really it doesn't come down to any profound reasoning or anything. It's just a beautiful character. But if you see, I've also written about a lot of the male gods who are lesser known. You have your Kartikeya, Yama. And in all those stories, there will be powerful female characters, the way they always have been. Which is why I don't really choose the characters as such, they just choose me, They interest me at some level, and it happens. And I feel, we have to take feminism one step further. We have to stop talking about, how we're being victimized, because women have never allowed themselves to be victims, to reduce to that state. Why should we start now? Why should we set the process back? Let's go forward and let's really not dwell on gender differences.
That's a great sentiment. So, to come back to the resurgence of mythological fiction in recent years, and how we were speaking about how Ashok Patel and Patel have made classic mythology more available to the modern Indian audience. Rick Riordan has done something very similar with Greek, Norse, and Egyptian mythology. But not only has he made it more available for the modern audience, he's also brought it with a global purview. So, can we do something similar with Indian mythology? Can Indian mythology have as extensive a global presence as Percy Jackson?
We had a very fascinating talk about this in the author's lounge, so we are very enthusiastic about this. And what we discussed was that, it ought to have a global reach because our stories are every bit as good as the Greek and Roman mythological stories which are so revered today. But I feel the problem here is, for us it's intensely personal, and mythology and religion kind of are twined very closely together in India, which makes us very sensitive. So when Wendy Doniger comes along with her version, we're up in arms and we're screaming for it to be burnt down. I don't think we should do that. I think that these are stories which are so beautiful that we ought to share them with the world instead of keeping it to ourselves. And let's talk about the financial gains, people. They're not inconsiderable. Or the struggling writer thing is such a cliche, We don't want our art to come from starvation. So we should take these stories and, we should be a part of it to make sure that that Indian sensibility is there. Because at the end of the day, as Utkarsh and I were arguing about it, I was saying that Wendy Doniger, I love that she's written about our mythology, but the thing is, when I read her works, I find a certain alien sensibility which really bugs me a little bit. So I think we should be part of this process. We should take it to a wider audience and share our treasure with everybody. And we shouldn't stop it, seriously.
So, I have a different take on what he asked just now, is that can we do what Gregory or somebody has done? The next question is our audience ready to see our mythology in that way? All of us love to see stuff like Stranger Things, O.J. Simpson, and the kind of stuff that Netflix doles on us, and we love it. Nobody in our weirdest mind has a doubt that we can produce it or not. We can. The question is, why are intelligent people still doling us real bullshit called Sasbo serials, right? We watch them in Hindi, we watch them in vernacular, we watch them again and again. So is it that those guys are not capable of creating stuff like Stranger Things or all these stuff? No, they are capable. I think the audience is not ready. The same audience is willing to read Percy Jackson, but the same audience might not be willing to see something more interesting from an Indian perspective. But yes, we'll tell our children, "Cha wo Chota Bheem dekh le." The Chota Bheem is not mythology, my dear friends. It's not. It's quite an apology of a Bheem's character. And actually, my bad points to see a character like Chota Bheem, all sorts of weirdest things in my life. Having said that, I feel we our people are kind of not matured enough to accept a Percy Jackson who's molded on a character, on an Indian character. And I think that's where it is. So yes, moment people are ready, trust me, Indian people are willing to roll it out. We need to be ready first. Our people, audience need to be ready first.
Let me start with Chota. I think that is a very good point that you raised, because my mother is she's here, my mother. She's a nursery school teacher, and she comes home every day.
Sorry if your students love Chota
They
Bheem.
do, they do. Spoiler alert, they do. And I fear for it, because they might grow up relating that being to the being that they would be introduced later in their life.
Absolutely, yes.
Which will be a problem, because when they are introduced to the Mahabharata, the being from Mahabharata, they might not be expecting Hidamba to be there, they might be expecting Chutti to be there, and that is going to go down the drain. और राजू तो कहीं भी नहीं होगा. Okay, so, and also that one of the reasons why the experimenting with Indian mythology or characters named after Indian mythology has been limited to children is because they don't have good resources. There is this cartoon called Role Number 21, if you know. It has Lord Krishna as the protagonist, and the perspective is quite interesting. Lord Krishna is a school student, and he goes to school every day, and that's his adventures, and children love it. I doubt that a lot of adults, if there was such a show to be produced, keeping in mind a mature adult audience, I doubt if it would be successful, if it would even run 5 shows. So I think, as I said, sensitivity is not a creator-based problem; it's more of an audience-based problem. So
That's what I said. I think our people are not ready.
No, let me stir the pot here. I disagree with both of them. Okay, because we are never in any. See, we have the second largest population in the world, and well on our way to being the most populous nation in the world. I don't think there'll ever be a consensus. I don't think that every single Indian is ever going to be ready. I think we need to start taking baby steps. We can't dismiss the audience as someone whose sensibilities are too delicate. I think we should trust in the content, in good stories, in good sense behind the stories. Please, Chota Bheem, and even Role Number 21, sometimes my children insist on watching it, and like Utkarsh said, it's painful viewing. I see no reason to feed pap to our children or our adults. I think, you improve the content and encourage them to, grow up to it, be worthy of it. So I think let's start taking baby steps. Otherwise forget baby steps, just jump into the deep end. Sink or swim, let's go for broke over here.
I think that is where the third aspect of our discussion, marketing, comes in. I think I now see what the point is, that we need not underestimate our audience as much as we do, because let's just try. Because our mythology, as Utkarsh rightly said, has all elements. It just doesn't delve into one particular theme. You cannot zero down one theme of the Mahabharata. You cannot zero down one theme of the Ramayana. It has so many aspects to it. It goes so deep, and maybe that's why it's still alive. Maybe that's why there's still research done on it. Maybe that's why I think that's why embellished authors like Anuja, they take up characters from the Mahabharata and explore them in new lights. They are such diverse stories. They are such diverse tales. And let me tell you, Mahabharata started as a 25,000 verse. It wasn't even an epic at that time. It was a 25,000 verse poem called Jaya, and it developed into a 100,000 verse long poem called. It then went to 50,000 words called the Bharat, and then it developed into a 100,000 verses long epic that we know today as the Mahabharata. So imagine 25,000 में से 1 lakh. So imagine how many themes would be added to it. Imagine how many layers would be added to it. So we have all the content that we need in our mythology. And as we say, we grow up with these stories. I remember my first books in English were about Ramayana and Mahabharata, the character introductions. And I loved them. And I'm sure every single youngster who's here, they would have loved them too. They would have been appealed by Lord Krishna. They would have been appealed by the strength of Arjuna, or they would have been appealed by the discipline of Lord Ram. And they would have looked up to them as idols, as I did. And that is why I think I see your point that we shouldn't underestimate our audience as much as we do.
Right, so coming back to, how both of you mentioned that our epics have been retold so many times, and that's part of what keeps them alive. Even though they've been retold so many times from live action TV to animations, what is it that keeps them fresh despite their countless retells? Because even though you tell the same version of this, you tell the same story again and again, what is it that prevents people from getting sick of it?
I think the simple answer here is that there are no simple answers when it comes to mythology, okay? Because you can spend a lifetime devoted, say, just to the Mahabharata, or maybe just a character in the Mahabharata. Devote your lifetime to it, and at the end of it, you still can't say that you know every single thing there is to know about that character. You know, it's an ocean out there. And the more you research it, every book you write, you just discover that there's so much more that you don't know. And that's beautiful. I think it's so nice to have something that just keeps on giving, that gives so much to you and takes so much out of you. So I think that's the whole thing, There's so much there that's undiscovered, which is why those of us who get in, we become addicted. We become addicted, and we keep going back for more and more fixes. And it's not at all bad for your health. It's great for your health. When you give into this addiction, this beautiful addiction, and just dive into the depths and just keep swimming around forever and ever.
Yeah, for once I will agree with her. I have a lot of disagreements. For once I'll agree with her. It's a huge thing. I mean, somebody recently asked me, why don't you write on Greek mythology? I said, I will, once I finish with Mahabharata, and that will take me another 50 years. I haven't gone out, I don't know, but it will take me another 50 years. I think one of the reasons why these stories have survived over a period of time is we have allowed these stories to kind of move along with the times. We have allowed a lot of changes, a lot of modifications to suit individual sensibilities, to choose regional sensibilities. We've allowed it all, and that's why you have so many different versions coming to you from different corners of the world. And that's the richness of it. In spite of acquiring so much over a period of time, from the time Valmiki wrote it to the fact that we are still talking about it, shows how rich it was, what amount of richness it has acquired over a period of time. And that's what's keeping it alive and thriving. And this kind of a discussion that we're having might be happening now in an English mainstream language. But let me tell you, regional languages have been exploring mythology since time immemorial. Rather, English writing about mythology might be a new genre altogether as English fiction mythology. But the regional, be it Gujarati, Bengali, Marathi, all the languages in Tamil, Malayalam, they have explored mythology to such an extent, and often to a contrarian viewpoint also, that it has survived since ages. It's not that we are doing it now, rather very few of us are doing it in the English language, but it's been existing. So the fact that it has existed, it has lived, and I think it will go on, because some of us are not leaving Mahabharata for as long as we are alive. So it's going to live on forever. That's the richness of the whole thing out here.
I would like to, in reference to this point, I would like to go back to what Utkarsh said in the very beginning. We need to see our mythology as literature. There's a very beautiful word in Sanskrit. Does anyone know the translation of the word classic in Sanskrit? It's Kaljai. The word classic is translated as Kaljai in Sanskrit, literally meaning the one that transcends time. The one that stands the tests of time and still keeps living on. And if we, for a moment, see Ramayana and Mahabharata detached from mythology, and if we just for a moment look at these epics as pure works of literature, they would still seem just as beautiful as they are to us today. And maybe that a literary value of Ramayana and Mahabharata, a literary value of the Bhagavad Gita can make it so relevant even to the management graduates today. The last time I heard Devdutt Patnaik was taking a lecture on management and Bhagavad Gita. How is that possible? That is possible due to the literary values, the aspects, the poetry, the sheer poetry that the Ramayana and Mahabharata are. So if we set a perspective, a literary perspective, side by side with a mythological perspective, I think that would make us appreciate our own mythology more as literary works. Because they are, if detached from mythology, they are as standalone literary works just as meaningful.
So, Utkarsh, you talked about how mythology has been talked of in regional languages since time immemorial. So, since mythology arises due to the values and beliefs of different cultures, it varies not just from country to country but also within a country. So, apart from the more widespread national epics, what are the differences or similarities with the more specific myths unique to each region?
See, what has happened over a period of time, as I said, the regional sensibilities is, while your myths and epics did exist the way they always have been, there have also been existence of what we call a lot of folk tales, okay, and folk narratives. So, besides the different versions, for example, we have a Kamban Ramayana, we have a Tamil Ramayana, we have a Bengali Ramayana, we have Malayali versions. Something that is very typically nuanced in the culture has also crept in. Okay, for example, let me take the example of Bengali Ramayana, which was written by Prithvish. The Bengalis have always had a very different sensibilities compared to the militant northern side. So if you see Ram in Bengal, he's a much more normal human being. He's not a heroic type. He does break down at certain points of time. We do see a Bengali Ram often crying because he's kind of not able to find a solution. Right? Now that would be kind of an absolute surprise to, let's say, a Ramayana from Haryana. Right? You'd say, oh, how is that possible? How can a man cry? But in Bengali Ramayana, Ram does cry once in a while. Let's take another example. The whole presence of black magic, okay, in certain parts of Kerala is highly prevalent. Now, we've never heard of any prevalence of an episode of black magic in Mahabharata. But go down south, Malayalam version has an entire episode, an aspect which has been introduced okay, as black magic, which is known as Abhichara in Malayalam. It's a huge version of the story, and there are within Malayali Mahabharata also, you have so many versions of the Abhichara episode itself, because there is the belief that your house once in a while needs to be cleaned of all the buri nazar that has fallen. So the passerby, when he's going by, ek buri nazar laga ke jata hai aapke ghar pe. So as a ritual, so it is a ritual that they do, and there's also a ritual which is enacted in the entire Mahabharata. So anybody going to Kerala, if you see the Kathakali performances or the Theyyam performances, they have this element. Similarly, so all these folk elements have crept in to Mahabharata, which kind of resonates very well when I'm talking about our culture. For example, sitting in Ahmedabad, if I'm going to depict a scene of Ram and Sita getting married, and if in the cuisine I add a bit of a fafda jalebi and dhokla, I would kind of relate to it. Okay, but the same story when told in down south in Tamil Nadu, if they talk about fafda jalebi, they would wonder why not idli sambar. So these kind of regional sensibilities have crept in, and they've kind of made the story my story. So when I hear it sitting in Ahmedabad, and I hear about the wedding of Ram and Sita, I kind of resonate, I kind of identify with it. And that's what a lot of local flavors have gone in. So you have so many versions. Like we were just talking some time back about the Malaysian Ramayana or the Thai Ramayana, okay? Right?
Yeah.
All these, there are so many Ramayans out there, and they have their own take. Now they are basically, their civilization had a lot of wars at the beginning, so you have the focus that their story focuses a lot on battles, right? There isn't any of the softer nuances. Sita feeling bad, Sita crying, you don't even have those those aspects there at all. But all the battle scenes between Ram and Ravan are an elaborate discussion, okay? They can't accept the fact about Hanuman being a celibate, which is quite a known factor here. He did not marry, but there, he's quite a womanizer. Hanuman being quite a womanizer, wherein he literally, when he goes to Lanka, there are scenes which say that he picks up, he kind of raises the curtains of all the bedrooms when he goes to Lanka, and he's having a nice time watching what he sees. Now this doesn't agree with your and my sensibilities, so we are not willing to listen to it, but down out there, they love the idea. And there is more angle to the story of Hanuman than you have anything about Ram. So this kind of stuff, going back to what you were asking, is how a lot of regional aspects have come in, and the fact that they're still thriving despite all this.
He's covered most of it, so I just add to it a little bit. I would say that the reason we need these local flavors, these regional nuances, is because originally all these texts were in Sanskrit, right? They were taught also in Sanskrit, which made them inaccessible to the wider majority. And now I think English has replaced Sanskrit. So if you're going to just stick with English and our perspectives, it becomes somewhat elitist. Whereas when the regional languages, they claim this for themselves because it belongs to everybody. These stories belong to all of us. So it's to take the food allusion he referred to, I would say it's like biryani, it's probably we argue about who cooked it first, but you have your Chettinad version. In Kerala they make it with their rice. In the north you have, the Mughlai biryani, whatever. So it's the same thing with all those flavors and it's all yummy. It's all good.
So Nivid, you mentioned about the disparity between the consideration of Ganesha and of Kartikeya as divided by Maharashtra. So could you elaborate a bit more on that?
That also goes into what Utkarsh mentioned earlier about the folk tales. The regional beliefs are quite different in India, and they're all accepted. We all live together in peaceful times. So mostly peaceful times. India runs on the road mostly. So in the northern part of India, at least Maharashtra was that I know of, Lord Ganesh is perceived as the elder brother amongst the Devo, and Lord Kartik is the younger brother. Down south, Lord Kartik is worshipped as Subramanian, if I'm not mistaken, and he is the more revered figure amongst the Devo. Lord Ganesh is worshipped, but lesser worshipped than Lord Kartik. They celebrate Lord Kartik more than they do Lord Ganesh in down south. And I think Lord Ganesh, as you mentioned, is a celibate in the southern part of India. It is Lord Kartik who has two consorts, Valli and Devasena. In the northern part of India, Lord Ganesh has two consorts, Riddhi and Siddhi. So I think that also brings in a new flavor to mythology. And it's not just that, as I mentioned earlier, the 300 versions of Ramayana, they all have different legends attached to them. For example, I remember reading about this one version of Ramayana which is also credited to Lord Valmiki, called the Adbhut Ramayana. There is a very interesting scene in the Adbhut Ramayana where there are two Ravans. There is the younger Ravan and the elder Ravan. And guess who kills the elder Ravan? Anyone? Lady Sita. Lady Sita kills the elder Ravan. And if we talk about feminist themes in mythology, it's right here. It's right there. And as we were talking about this, let's ask the audience. How many of you would agree that the Lakshman Rekha exists in the Ramayana? By a show of hands, how many of you would agree that the Lakshman Rekha exists?
I have another version.
Yes.
That it's just an imaginary line of our own boundaries which we create.
Okay, quite close to the truth. The Lakshman Rekha does not exist in the Valmiki Ramayana. It is a 16th century retelling written by Tulsidas ji, known as the Ramcharitmanas, that introduces the Lakshman Rekha. It's just that I think my generation and the generation before me was introduced to this tale of Ramayana through Ramanand Sagar's story, and Ramanand Sagar used Ramcharitmanas as the source material of his serial rather than the Valmiki Ramayana. It was his choice. So the Lakshman Rekha actually does not exist in the Valmiki Ramayana. So the feminist themes are right here. So yeah.
Right. So on a final note, one thing I'd like to discuss is that our ancient epics are such complete stories because they are multifaceted in every way. There's no absolute morality. There's no black or white, and that lack of absolute morality is something that is very rarely considered properly. Because if you look at it, then Ravan was obligated to avenge his sister's humiliation because she didn't have a nose cut by a stranger, and Vishwesh's decision to betray his brother, to forgo the bonds of blood and choose his personal morality, is strikingly similar to Karn, siding with the Kauravas instead of the Pandavas, despite knowing that they were his brothers. So what's your take on that?
Again, I would say that it's to encourage you to look at the bigger picture. You know, it's very lazy to just say, this is it, this is it, this is what our mythology says, and you know, get argumentative and violent about it, because that's the part. That's a very simple part to take. Instead, you know, you should have what it takes to look closer, to look at the big picture, to devote time towards understanding what these texts are trying to tell us. Because the truth, as Nivid said, and Utkarsh and I, when we were talking about it in the author's lounge, we rapped him on the knuckles for it. And we said there's no absolute truth, there's no right or wrong per se. Because at heart, it's all neutral. Whether you're talking about the Asuras or the reviled characters in the epic. As I pointed out in the author's lounge, we were talking about it, and I said that at the end of the epic, the Kauravas as well as the Pandavas found themselves in heaven. Though we like to dismiss the Kauravas as the bad guys, which is a very simplistic way of thinking, in Sapta as well as Tantra philosophies, you find that they refer to the right-handed path as well as the left-handed path, and both paths lead to the same destination. Because at heart, there is no good, there's no bad, nothing like that, nothing quite so simple. It's just that we take different paths to the same destination. Some people may need a stopover in hell with Yama and his lieutenants to get punished for all the stuff they've done. But it doesn't end there. That's the point, Ultimately, we all go to a better place, We transcend our limitations. That's what we can take from all this.
The way I look at it is that these stories are not mathematical equations which say 2 plus 2 is 4 no matter which way you look at it. In Gujarati also 2 plus 2 will be 4, in Tamil also, in Malayalam also. These stories have a very, very different way of looking at it. And some of these stories are not mathematical equations. They throw up more questions than they solve answers for you. In life, it is very easy, tough to choose between A and B. For a character, you and I can do it. Oh, Ram shouldn't have done this, and I think he shouldn't have done this, he should have done this instead. All very easy for you and me to sit here and judge for somebody else. But in life, there are questions which never have a straight answer. Some of these stories are only throwing that up. For example, if I had to say that which was good in the battle of Mahabharata, was it a choice between good and bad? It was a choice between bad and bad. Now the question is, fighting a war, no matter which way you look at it, is wrong. So it was a choice, and that's what life does. Throws up a lot of choices which are not necessarily plus or minus. These stories have only existed from you to debate. I mean, let's look at it. Even today, after a 10-hour discussion on Mahabharata, we will all go back with 100 more questions than what we came with. And I think that's the richness of the story. And that's what these myths and mythology does for you. Was Rishi Gautam right in cursing Ahalya? You might say no today, but way back then they didn't. So people accepted the fact that yes, she was cursed because of a transgression to become a stone. The question is, we can still debate this question is, was he right or was he wrong? This is no end, and these are only used as milestones for us to understand, is this correct or is that correct? So that's where the relevance continues. There is no end to it. And it just throws up more questions. I think these are more ethical, more conflict-driven, more debate-driven questions. That's exactly why probably these stories have survived.
I think it was John Green who said you never reach the truth, you just get better at asking better questions.
Okay. So thank you, Anuja, Nivid, Utkarsh. I think we've had a very fulfilling and insightful discussion, and realized that the timeless tales that constitute mythology are still very relevant today. And although it leaves us with 100 more questions than we had before, the beauty of it is that it raises questions that provoke thought, that force you to ponder, that don't leave you with any heavy-handed one. And I think that's what that debate, that never-ending debate, is what keeps mythology fresh, it keeps it relevant, it keeps it alive. And that in and of itself is the beauty of mythology. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
It was a very enlightening session, but we have some time for audience interaction. So if any of you want to ask any questions to them.
Also, please say to whom is the question directed. Thank you.
Well, not a question directed, but I would like to say it's mythology. So what I believe from my perspective is everything is there in a coded fashion, like he said about Lakshman Rekha. So similarly, Supnakhas, cutting off the nose, what does that imply? Nakkarju means what? Lakshman would have done what with Supnakha? That's not put across in direct words. So there is an indirect meaning to it. That's what my perception is. But I do blog at times, but I don't blog because it will be like opening up too much or delving in too much, pondering in too much and revealing certain things which audiences, which readers would not like to accept.
Don't limit yourself because readers won't like it. Please go ahead and write. Let readers criticize you for that.
My perspective.
But give your perspective nonetheless. See, all of us are giving our perspective. When I wrote something in a particular book, my publisher wanted me to kind of say that maybe you want to delete it. I said, no, I don't want to delete it. If the people don't like it, let them not read it. But raise your voice, give your perspective nonetheless.
So if we go deep down, so that was probably the root cause of a battle. Or that was just a divine way of going towards Ravan's, and otherwise Ravan wouldn't have. He was the best Vakta, he was best in all, best in all. Nobody could have defeated him actually. Nobody had the power.
So there are different ways of looking at that aspect. Okay, one is setting up a norm, okay, a societal norm to say that women don't behave like this. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. There are different versions and different ways of looking at it. The way I look at it is, here is patriarchy, kind of telling the women folk, that's not done. Okay, behave yourself. You have to live within a certain expected standards of laid down by the patriarchy. So, in my opinion, that's what it was. Of course, there are different versions, but we don't have that kind of.
Thank you.
Sir, it's very dangerous thing when somebody tempts with the myths, they do some alteration or keep specific silence. Like, sorry to say the names, please, this is for the example relevance only. Take the example of Mr. SLB. He deliberately kept silence that in Khilji Deepika controversy dream sequence, whether he has shown that in the film or not. I'm talking about the Padmavati. So no, sir, it's relevant. That's why I read the heading and that's why I'm asking. He has deliberately kept the silence and allowed the controversy to grow for the win-win situation for the producer, for the media, for the channels, and for the public and for the lay bhagu netas. For everybody to create chaos, should these kind of things be permitted? Tomorrow you will show a Lord Krishna selling sanitary napkins. That this is the best I use for my finger. Will it do? So there has to be some limit by the medias and the persons who are touching this is asset.
I'm sorry, I can't wait.
Sir,
Who sets these limits? I'm sorry, who sets these limits is my question.
No, that's what the media is already all the time doing as far as Hindu myths are concerned. Show me a single Western producer who tempts with the Lord, Jesus Christ. Take the film 10 Commandments. Not a single cut was permitted by the Pope. He said that if you want to show this throwing of the spear and all this thing, okay, no problem. But you cannot cut 10 Commandments, a single, even comma, full stop, a single spelling mistake even.
10 commandments should be compared with Padmavati.
This is the rigidity shown by the Western media. Same thing is shown by all the religious media. Why these people are in entertainment field especially taking just this caste so lightly, nobody knew that it will go to this extraordinary controversial proportions. Now they are finding it very difficult to show the film in any, you have allowed 1,000 different opinions. So someone is going to burn the screen.
Sir, there have been 3 different press releases in which Sanjarina Bansali has repeatedly said that there is no dream sequence between.
No, in the name of, sir, freedom of speech, we have said a lot. But now there has to be some discipline shown, because you just now said the Valmiki, there is no Lakshman Rekha. But he never shown, the principle and the ethics of the epic remains. Even if there is a Lakshman Rekha or not, it's not a big thing. The Ramayana story remains there.
And sir, may I just say, I've written a book on Padmavati. It's just been released, so shall we just establish that I've done my research for the book? And actually, there's no consensus among historians that such a character existed in the first place. So why are we talking about the original epic had talking parrots in it? Jayasri's version of Padmavat, it had talking parrots in it. It was meant to be read as fiction. Okay, so we're talking about artistic liberties taken with a subject that may or may not have occurred in the first place. There's no consensus. And regarding the Western media, again, we're talking about portrayals of Jesus Christ. Let me give you the example of Da Vinci Code, where he says that Jesus Christ was a family man. He had a wife. Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, she was his wife, who was revived. So there are many versions in every part of the world, and I feel that the solution can never be to curtail artistic expression. I just don't think that's the way to go.
If you, and just for the Da Vinci Code, it has also come down to Indian English literature. If you read Ashwin Sanghi's The Rose of Zion, it says the exact same thing. It speaks of Jesus Christ as a family man, and we have accepted it with open arms. Da Vinci Code has been accepted with open arms. So it's not just about Indian directors or Indian art. It's also at an international level. Good art has been appreciated all over the world.
And the sign of a matured civilization is to allow different viewpoints. A matured civilization has the right to object, and object in the most civilized manner, not in the manner that we have just been accessed. Yeah, somebody has a question there.
I think this is a question to all of you, and my trouble is the word mythology itself. Are we using mythology in the absence of, because we don't have any scientific instruments to judge it? Because mythology is myth. Nilesh Oak, if you know who is Nilesh Oak, he's done a beautiful work doing a very scientific, seismic, astrological calculation on the exact dating of Mahabharata and Ramayana. So is the word mythology does not negate all of history, which is a history itself and not a myth?
The group has decided I must answer it, as Anuja says, it's your pet subject. And yes, it is my pet subject, and I'm going to say about it. First and foremost, the word myth and mythology is basically, the meaning of the word myth is story. Okay, number one, let's get that very, very clear.
That's one version. So people have, I think... Yeah.
I'll come to it. I'll come to your...
Just a rider. People have also defined mythology to their convenience.
Okay, I'm going by the rule book. I'm going by what we teach at the university and the study of mythology as a subject. Myth, unfortunately, over a period of time, has taken a wrong meaning of the word lies. Okay, myth does not mean lies. Myth means story. Yes, for a particular culture who's come up with these stories, they can also be seen as sacred tales. Sacred not as in religion, sacred as in the fact that I believe in these tales. Now, how did mythology become history? That's a big, big misnomer. Because first and foremost, let's understand, there isn't an appropriate word for history in our language. If you think it is itihas, no, it is not itihas. It's when the Britishers came in and we realized we must have history. We must have written history is when the concept of history introduced. The word itihas, and I have a friend here who loves this thing. Itihas means itihasa. This is how it was. This is how it was. It doesn't mean what has been written about the past. Now what has happened is somewhere we have merged our mythology and our British understanding of history. So it is not the case. Now, coming back to what you said that somebody's dated it, the way we look at it is all fiction has some element of truth in it. That some element of truth hasn't quite been proven, but yes, there is a semblance of truth. When I say semblance of truth, if I'm writing a story, there is some element of me or somebody I know very closely, that's the element of truth. How much of that core is the truth is very, very tough to fathom, because remember, these stories existed in the oral tradition. In oral tradition, what was truth? And it got written after thousands of years when the script emerged. So to say that yes, every mythology has a kernel of history, no. People are exploiting this aspect to say that the richness of our past has it, that's a lot of, pardon my language, a lot of bullshit. Okay, we don't go by that. Yes, mythology existed way back, but to call all mythology history is serving a particular purpose, and I have a strong objection with that particular purpose. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think
I strongly disagree, but you are.
which is okay. It's disagreements which make horses run, as they say.
Because
So
Mahatma Gandhi may be a mythological character.
maybe after 1,000 years, maybe after 10,000 years, people won't believe that you got freedom out of non-violence. So people might not believe it. Point taken.
There's a temple in Kolkata dedicated to Mr. Amitabh Bachchan.
Does-
5,000 years later, 5,000 years later, if you were to be born again and if you were to be questioned, was Mr. Amitabh Bachchan real? What would you answer?
I just want to add something to what Utkarsh said, and in this part of the world, he said mythology is getting equated with history, right? I'm going to take it a step further and say history itself, it's actually his story, okay? We can't just say this happened. Now, even this discussion which we've had today, there are going to be a lot of versions of what we said here. Believe me, there's not going to be a consensus.
Somebody
How can
please
we
write it
have
down
the
fast.
arrogance? How can we have the arrogance? How can we have the arrogance to presume to know something that happened thousands of years ago? I mean, India is the only country where we kill each other over fiction. I mean, it's lovely that we are that passionate, but come on, let's face it, it's fiction. It's stories, ultimately.
That
I love
gentleman was a
stories.
sarcastic comment. Yes, sir. Somebody
What
had
I wanted to say is, actually ask, how many of you would agree that to our times is that they still reflect what is in our society and in our lives?
Yeah, I completely would agree, because even now, I would draw, not me per se, but as men, we still draw boundaries of what is womanhood and how far women can go out. So the Lakshman Rekha might not be drawn as a physical line, but we still define, right? Girls can't go out after such and such time, girls can't wear this kind of a dress. So the Lakshmans of the world still exist. And I think that's the richness of the story, that it's kind of contemporized in a different form. Earlier, Lakshman drew a line. Today we kind of tell our women not to do this, not to do that, not to wear that, and not to do this. So yes, it's to that extent we do believe that the stories have a relevance even today. Maybe that's why we're still telling about these stories and we're still debating here with so many people coming on a Sunday morning to listen to us.
I would like to reply to that question both from a literary point of view and a philosophical point of view. As I said earlier, these as someone who is a student of literature, I first look at these works as classics. So classics, the works who have stood the test of time. From a philosophical point of view, all the issues that these tales talk about are perpetual. You cannot ever expect a human being to not be sad. You cannot see, even if today you were to go dutifully against someone you love, you would be feeling the very same emotion that Arjun felt in Kurukshetra. Imagine if you were to get a guide as good as Lord Krishna and guide you in that same sense. We already have a guide as good as Lord Krishna. It's called the Bhagavad Gita. So, and the very interesting thing about Bhagavad Gita is that it gives us full liberty. At the end of giving the extract of life, one of the concluding shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita that I absolutely love, I cannot quote Sanskrit, but I will translate it. The last line of that is, I have given you knowledge most profound. Now it is your duty to think upon it and do as you like. Maybe that is the liberal liberty that our mythology gives us, and maybe that is what has connected to us so much. That sense of freedom, because we as Indians are inherently rebellious people, right? If there's a law, we break it. Laws.
We are all armchair rebels. We are all armchair rebels.
Armchair rebels. #activists. So yeah, I think that's why our mythologies are so contemporary even today, so relevant even today. Is because of their vastness, B, because of their literary value, and C, because of their empathy that we can connect with them. That's all.
And just one thing I would like to add. When we talk about patriarchal notions which have been propagated through mythology, I would like to add that you will find that in mythology usually it balances itself out because there will be polarizing views. For instance, the auspicious woman has always been revered, your Sita, and your Kannagi. They've all been revered, you know. But on the flip side, on the other side, you will see characters like Kali. In the south, she's worshipped as Amman. And even in the deep south, where we are super conservative people, you will find that Kali in the temples, and you have massive statues where she's topless, adorned with nothing more than skulls. So, you know, it is like that in our mythology. Always there are opposing viewpoints. So for every auspicious woman out there, you'll have the Apsaras who are very sexually liberated. So ultimately, I think it all balances itself out. So maybe balance is the true God, ultimately.
That's very true.
Now, so one more example, not only of South Indian industry, film industry. N.T. Ramarao, Jayalalitha, and our Kamal Hassan and Rajnikant. Only these four. N.T. Ramarao and Jayalalitha in Hearts of South. All public will agree because they have never crossed a border. They have shown Devi as a Devi. They have shown God as a God. God comes, even the film was made where Jitendra in Hindi remake asked for a cup syrup. मेरे को खांसी है तो यमराजा मेरे को कप सिरप भी दे दो. ये भी लोगों ने हंस के टाल दिया था. उनको किसी को बुरा नहीं लगा ये चीज. क्या अच्छी बात है. ये गॉड इज वहां जाएगा, खांसी होगी, ठंडी होगी तो कप सिरप मांगेगा बच्चा. तो ये सब चीजें भी सब लोगों ने बहुत प्यार से बर्दाश्त कर ली. मगर ये जब एट्रोसिटीज टू द गॉड आती है तभी बात बिगड़ती है. देखिए आज ये लोग दिस टू पीपल आर स्ट्रगलिंग. कमल हसन इज नॉट पुलिंग मासेस. सेम थिंग इज विद रजनीकांत. रजनीकांत का मंदिर बनता है, उसको एक वोट भी नहीं मिलता है. उसका पॉलिटिकल वैल्यू जीरो है सर. इसका मार्केटिंग वैल्यू फिल्म में 10 करोड़ है. एग्रीड. मगर ये ही इज नॉट अ गॉड. See it otherwise. N.T. Ramarao, MGR, and Jayalalitha. These three people are extraordinary in Hearts of South. So study these people, and you just, I mean, I simply wanted these 5 people's example in your discussion would have, you know, made things very easy to understand.
Can I ask just a small question here? You know, I'm not supposed to answer a question. I'm supposed to answer questions, not ask. But let me ask one question.
Please.
Is the religion so weak that a few people like this can bend into the religion?
No.
If the religion is so weak that no criticism, then something is seriously wrong with our religion. Let me make this loud and
My
clear.
focus is whether you believe in God or not. It's anybody's choice. I'm simply concerned with the tempering to the God. These 3 people have not tempered the God. That's why they are in hearts of the people. These 2 people are trying to do something extraordinary. That's why they are marketing this thing.
Okay.
This is the only difference.
Continuously told to kind of wind up. So I know ladies constantly poor guy and he's taking it all. So we'll keep taking this again some other time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here on behalf of all of us on a Sunday morning. Thank you very much.
Now I request Shivani to facilitate Mrs. Anuja Chandramauli. I request Shivani to facilitate. And now I request Ruchita to facilitate